Hello. If you are watching this, you are probably about to embark on my 12 or 16-week Running with Power training program. So what is Running with Power? You're probably interested in that, given that you're going to participate in a training plan based on running power. Is it a gimmick? No. I've tried and experimented with this for, I would say, just the best part of a year, and it is anything but. I originally was suspicious, thinking it's just another gimmick to sell a watch, but actually there's some real benefits and an extremely accurate way of monitoring sessions and planning a training cycle or training season, which is what we're going to be doing over the next 12 to 16 weeks. So what is it? What is Running with Power? It's another means of monitoring intensity. You have the traditional heart rate monitoring, which has been around for a very long time. And Philip Maffetone is sort of the guru on the subject of heart rate training. There's also rate of perceived exertion, where you can monitor your exertion based on your own perception, how you feel, how you know whether you're, say, easy recovery, say 1 or 2 out of a scale of 10, or a 10 out of 10, you're absolutely thrashing around a running track. Or monitoring intensity by pace. You would know what your, say, 5K pace is, 10K, half marathon, marathon pace, and gauge your intensity of workouts based on that metric. Each of those has their limitations. Heart rate, monitoring intensity based on heart rate. Heart rate's very reactive. For instance, as you run up a hill, you find the first bit of your heart rate is, you feel strong and you feel great. But by the time, and depending on how long that hill is, by the time you get to the top, you're absolutely blown out. So you could have run too hard at the beginning and then blown yourself out by the time you get to the top. Heart rate is also very reactive. It's affected by things such as caffeine, tiredness, sleep, deprivation, sickness, weather conditions, like humidity or heat. So it's very reactive. It doesn't give you a precise measure of what you're doing at that moment. It is more of a measure of how your body is reacting to the intensities. So there are limitations with heart rate. There's still value, in my opinion. A lot of those other gurus of running power would argue differently. I still think that there is a value in certainly looking at your heart rate over time, how your heart rate and resting heart rate sort of changes as you become fitter. And Running with Power for me is how you plan your individual sessions, and you can gauge how your body reacts over time against those same sessions. RPE, obviously, that's subject to your own error in perception, particularly at the end of race. You might be doing a lot slower pace, but it actually feels a lot harder. So rate of perceived exertion might be inaccurate that way. It's a real art if you can manage to gauge intensity by rate of perceived exertion, but it is subject to obviously more margin of error. And then pace. Pace is very difficult to, negative splits. I don't know if you ever tried to do a negative split in a race. It's the most effective way of, or accurate way of pacing a race. It's very hard to do. It's a lot of practice, a lot of training. And power, it allows you in real time to know that intensity. If you know the intensity and the power that you can hold over specific durations, say for instance your half marathon, you know that if you start to deviate from that power zone, that you are ultimately going to crash. So if your average power, for instance, is say 250 watts for a half marathon, and at the beginning of the race you start off at 280, 290, if you're training up to that date has and only indicated a 250 threshold. If you're going off at 280 to begin with, it's only going to go one way, and you're going to be slowing down at the end until your pace averages out, or your power averages out at 250. If you're lucky, you've probably gone off too hard too soon. So power is an extremely powerful tool in pacing. Through your training, you'll know what those intensities are that you can hold, and sticking to those in a race. You can forecast and predict race performance extremely accurately once you've collected enough sort of data and done enough training to demonstrate these are the levels that you can sustain. Extremely powerful tool. I've done that myself in a half marathon. It was about a year ago now, and it was uncanny how accurate it was. I punched in the numbers that I wanted to achieve, the time that I want to achieve, based on the power that I could hold, and it was within, say, 30 seconds of that forecast. By sticking to that output. So it's a lot of benefits for training with power, and indeed racing with it. It's an extremely accurate forecasting tool and race planning tool. And we'll come on to that throughout the training plan. Also, as a coach, it allows me to be able to monitor athletes in terms of whether or not they're hitting the targets that have been set, and whether or not we need to adjust and modify the plan. It holds a huge, enormous wealth of information within the data metrics, even to the extent that you can see running form and where improvements in running form will actually generate for a given power a greater pace. So you like to think that there's a relationship between the pace that you do and the power that you put down, or the intensity that you put down. And there is. And if you can eke out better running efficiency, better running form, it's actually getting greater pace for the same power. Again, it's just, that comes out in the detail of the workouts, but it's such an amazing tool to actually prove scientifically the importance of good running form, and how running efficiency, you're able to eke out greater pace for a given amount of effort that you put into a workout or a race. So from a coach's perspective, it's again something that's extremely accurate and tangible and measurable. So in terms of where we are now, so if you just got your power meter, don't know what to do with it, let's get it set up so the numbers are registering on your watch, and certainly for the next few weeks, just run as you normally would, capture the data on your watch, upload it to Training Peaks, and that's all you have to do for the next few weeks. Just get used to the device, used to seeing what the numbers are doing, and in a few weeks' time, what we'll start to do is introduce a little bit more structure. So we have you do a long run, some hills, some tempo run, and some intervals. So we got quite a broad range of intensities and durations, and that will help sort of build a picture of what your power duration curve will look like when ultimately we come to testing, and it just builds up a more fuller picture of you as a runner. So over the next few weeks, as I say, just get used to the device, run as normal. I'll start dropping in some prescribed workouts probably in week 3, and then week 4 when we start. Basically, we'll be doing a functional threshold test, FTP test, or a critical power test, similar, and it's similarly uncomfortable as a FTP test on a bike, unfortunately. The test protocol that we'll do is I think it's a 3-minute interval at maximal effort, maximal power. Then a bit of recovery, and then follow it by a 10-minute, again, maximal power. As much power as you can put out in that 10 minutes. And I'll send you a more prescribed testing protocol, which you follow. But that's essentially be it. And from those numbers, you'll have your FTP, critical power, and then from that we can plan your 12 to 16 week running plan based on those numbers. We'll revisit that testing every 4 weeks or so to make sure they're accurate. We should hopefully see your power going up, and hopefully your running efficiency and effectiveness improving during that time scale. And yeah, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. If you love numbers, great. This is definitely a thing for you. If you don't love numbers and you have to geeky in that way, fine. I am. So give me your numbers. I'll look at it and I'll shape your training plan based on those numbers. So hopefully that gives you kind of an outline of what we're going to be doing. Any questions, obviously give me a shout.